Hey y'all, it's Christy from Teadoddles, and today I'm going to show you how to add stretch lace to the edge of your knit garments. But first, let's say, welcome new subscribers, welcome back subscribers. I'm happy to have you here with me and my maker shenanigans. I do like to do the sewing things, the yarny things, and the DIY things, so you'll see a little bit of all that here on this channel. So if you like to make things, you might like it here. Alright, as you can see on this arm hole, I've already added some stretch lace. So I did this so I could test out what I was doing to be sure I knew what I was doing before I showed you the video. I've never actually added stretch lace to the edge of anything, but I was fairly confident I knew the process. I just had to test it out. Okay? So to figure out what you need, how much you actually need for an armhole or a neck hole, whatever you're adding to it, it should be between 80 to 85% less in length than your opening. Okay, so for example, some math for you right there. my neck opening measures 38 inches. Okay, and so you would multiply that either by 0.85 or 0.8, which would be 80 or 85%, which is, really depends on how stretchy something is. Like if it's really stretchy, I would go for the higher percentage. If it's not as stretchy and doesn't have as much recovery, like say bias binding it stretches, but it doesn't like stretch like this, I would go with the lower end. And then also when you're dealing with armholes, depending on how large the armhole is, this one hangs down below my armpit a good bit, so I'm not worried about it. But if it's a snugger fit on your arm or something, you're doing this, you may want to up the percentage to like 90% or so to keep it from being too tight on your arm, if that makes sense. So I measured this 38 inches times 0.85, and then you want to add in your seam allowance. So what you have to be aware of is if you are adding, if you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you get a 1/2 inch that's got to come off of each end. So you need to double that seam allowance. So I'm using a 1/2 inch because I only used about 3/8 inch seams in this, but I'm using 1/2 inch on this because I want to be sure that this doesn't get sucked down into my sewing machine when I sew the ends together. So the formula would be 38 inches times 0.85, and then I'll add an inch to whatever that is to get how long to cut my stretch lace. So that was 33.3 inches for me, so I cut it at 33 1/4 because that was easier to measure. And then my sleeves worked out to be 16.3 inches, and I also cut that at 16 1/4. Okay, so next you're going to sew your ends. So before you attach this, you're going to sew your ends together. I'm just going to overlap it right like that, and I'm going to use, you can use a zigzag stitch. I might shorten the length and width of it to keep it from being so wide, especially when I'm dealing with something so small. Or mine has a stretch zigzag stitch, which will, it's just narrower to begin with, and it has a deeper angle to it than a regular zigzag. A regular zigzag goes more like this. A stretch one goes more vertical, I would say. So that's what I'm going to use to sew the ends together. Then I'll come back and I'll show you how I pin and stretch this around here, because remember, it's going to be shorter. And the reason you do that is because if you don't make your neckband shorter than your neck opening, when you iron it out, it's gonna be weird looking. If y'all remember, if anybody watched the video I did the other day where I showed all the clothes I made, there was one shirt in there that the neckband was it kept flipping out. Which part of that had to do with me trying to make a knit garment from a woven pattern with a weird neckband thing going on. But the other part of it is that the length just wasn't right for it to stand up correctly, especially when you're dealing with stretch. If I had made the neckband out of a woven material, it would have fit just fine because it was designed for woven, not to be stretched. So that was part of the issue there. But that'll be some of the things you'll have problems with. Your neckband will stick up, it won't lay flat. So that's the purpose of making it smaller when it's stretchy, so that it lays correctly once you flip it around. Okay? And I could go into some detailed explanations of how that works when you're dealing with concentric circles, and how when we flip this up, you need a smaller circle up here than what's down here, if you want to hear that. If you know what a concentric circle is. I teach drafting, y'all, so I'm going to go over here to the sewing machine and stitch the ends of both of these together, and I'll come right back and show you how I'm going to attach that to my garment before I get ready to sew it. Okay? Okay, I have my ends sewn together. You can just kind of see what that looks like. Maybe it's pretty tiny. I don't know how well that's showing up, but I'm going to flip that out just like that. Nah, I think I don't like that. I'm going to flip that to one side like that when I sew it on, just to make it a little more secure. And what you can do, if you want to, you could stitch that down too. It'll make that top a little more secure. I'm just not going to do that. This is kind of a practice garment for me, using this stretch lace. So I'm just kind of going with it. So what I did do also is mark the center of the other side, and I marked the centers of my collar, my neckline, which no is not centered over my label, but that's okay. We'll be all right. Grab me some clips. Now, normally on garments, this lightweight and slinky, I don't use clips, but I do have these narrow-ended clips that I love, because when I'm attaching something like this, I don't like the pins because it's just so tiny. These work better, and having that little narrow end instead of the wider end like the other clips makes it easier as well. So I will match up my centers just like this. And the only thing to be aware of is that it could drag on your garment, so you just need to hold it up so it's not pulling. And I'm just following this along to make sure I pin this in the right direction. There we go. Pin that right there. Go back around this side just to be sure everything is good. And I haven't... Yes, okay. So now, and it's tempting to kind of... What I'm going to do is pull this sort of like this, but I'm going to push it down some, because it would be tempting to quarter this and then match that to there, but this is shorter than this. So I don't want to be stretching more in one area than I am in another if I can avoid it. So that's why I'm doing it like this, to give me a better idea. You know, I got to stretch it out just a little bit, and then I can, for me, this will be the point that I pick to attach to my shoulder seam. Because I do like to attach this in several places, and even go ahead and do some of the stretching to attach, so I can get a better idea of how it's going to fit instead of just trying to stretch it when I'm sewing it. I feel that can sometimes end, well, it has for me in the past, ended in me having too much of one fabric when I got to the end, back around to the other side. So, all right, so now that I have those, I will take one side, and you're going to stretch it just like that to fit. And what I'll do is I'll stretch it, and I'll grab a section that's matched up, and I will clip it. And then I will do it again until I get it all clipped. So I'll stretch this portion now. This is hard to do on camera, but there we go. Alright, so now I know I have to stretch this a little more. When you go around the curves, it gets a little more stretchy. And of course your other fabric stretches too, especially since you're going around a cut curved area. Alright, so that is what I do to get all of this adjusted to fit into my neck opening, and to try to avoid having one area be stretched more than another. Maybe somebody else does that differently. I don't know. This is how I do it. Especially since I'm dealing with this super stretchy stretch lace. The other bindings I've done have been either bias edging or well, they're all bias. Most bindings are cut on the bias, or bias, like the bias tape, or a piece of the knit fabric that I've cut on the bias to go around the opening. So first time. So this is a how-to video, but it's also me learning how to do things. Haha. And that happens sometimes. And alright, I'm gonna get more clips, but I'm gonna go sew this on with my zigzag stitch, my little stretch zigzag, and I'll show you that, and then I'll come back and show you, and then I'll flip it and I'll just stitch it down. It's pretty easy once you get everything pinned in. So okay, I have sewn my trim to the neckline. So I sewed it right sides facing together, and I used that stretch zigzag I told you about, and that's so that it allows for some stretch in here. Now when I sewed, I did the zigzag stitch, that same zigzag stitch here, but then when I flipped it over, I did a straight stitch, and I think I probably shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that, because of course I didn't have as much stretch now, and it's wanting to tug on the stitches. But you know, my brain is a little tired right now, and I wasn't thinking about that. So when I flip this one under, I will be using the same zigzag stitch that I used to sew it to here when I flip it, so that it maintains some of that stretch. But it's looking super cute, and I like it. So that's all I have to do. Once you can hit it with the iron. The iron doesn't really do much good on this tiny hem and fabric flip situation. So I can just flip it and stitch as I go, and I'll be fine. But that is all you do, really. I'm going to do the top stitch, and then I'll show you how it looks. I'll probably go ahead and put the other sleeve on, and then you can see the finished garment. I may flip this around to my mannequin so you can see that. I will do a try on of all of these at the end of the week. The ones I get the hems finished on, actually all the clothes I sewed. Because this one I definitely will have to wear something underneath to be able to show y'all how it looks. But I'll be right back to show you what it looks like finished up. Okay, I have pulled this up at the best angle I can get currently, because my little mannequin is broken and I can't push it up any higher. But this is how it looks. Hopefully y'all can see how it's laying and everything. This side of the sleeve definitely worked out better, sorry about my dog barking, than this side, because I did that regular top stitch for some reason. I don't know. I did the zigzag on this side and it lays down much nicer. This side's a little wonky, but that's okay. Like I said, this is a little practice garment, and I will show you how it looks on me in my end of the week video with anything I finished up. I'll show you, because I'm hoping to get the rest of this hemmed up before then. I still got to hem the bottom of this, which I'll be doing something different. I didn't have enough lace to go around the bottom as well. But there you go. That's how you attach it. I can turn it. You can see the back. But that's how it looks. It's fairly easy to do. All you gotta do is just make sure that you have the right measurement when you cut it the first time so that it lays correctly. If anybody wants to see a close-up of how I attach the stretch lace, because you do some tips, make sure the stretch lace or elastic part is on the bottom and then your fabric's on the top. It's easier to keep that top aligned and to pull slightly on the stretch lace as you go around, and then it just makes it a whole lot easier to get it on there if you have the stretch part on the bottom, and then you can see where the fabric's aligned and to keep that aligned, because it's very narrow on this particular one. I think this is like 1/4 inch stretch lace. So yeah, I will do another video at the machine showing how to do that if anybody wants to see that. I just don't have a setup right now where I can move my camera around too much and have a continuous recording. But I hope y'all enjoyed that and learned something. And if you have any questions, feel free to email or tell me in the comments. And y'all remember to have a life lived creatively, and I'll see y'all in the next video.